If you want your pencil drawings to be more realistic, you need 3 things: good photo reference, daily practice, and the right tools. Get yourself a B or softer pencil, both a regular and kneaded eraser, a mini electric eraser if you want to get fancy, and most importantly, a blending stick. So for photo reference, let's start with this amazing cosplay of Siri by Narga Aoki. I'm going to block out the shapes quickly, then once I'm happy with the proportions, I'll fill in the details a bit. Then I can start adding some shading, just lightly now with the pencil. Once I've got enough coverage, I can use the blending stick to smooth out the pencil lines. This will give it a more realistic look. You don't want to see the pencil lines, so the blending stick smudges the pencils to give it a soft, blurry feel. The biggest thing about going realistic is that you're working with values, not lines. The difference is between light and dark. So use the blending stick and erasers to capture the darks and the lights as you see them in the photo. I'm only 20 minutes in here, but you get the idea. Now compare it to my normal style. See how I'm looking at line and color instead of value and tone? Whatever style you choose, you're going to get better with practice. So don't get discouraged and practice your drawing every day. You'll see improvements, I promise. The way that I learned how to draw perspective was by drawing Legos. Because if you can draw a Lego, you can draw anything. Because if you put enough of these together, you can make anything. So start out by practicing drawing squares, then turn them into cubes, and try drawing those same cubes in different perspectives. For instance, the center one is directly in front of us, so you won't be able to see any of its sides. It's just a square to us, but you will be able to see the sides of the other cubes based on how far they are from the center square. Once you've mastered that, you can adapt this exercise to different shapes like rectangles or triangles or cylinders. Once you've got that down, you can pretty much draw anything. Everything is made up of these shapes. You'll start to see triangles, cylinders, and rectangles everywhere. So start small, practice the simple shapes, then work your way up to more complex ones. If you think about it, our world is just a bunch of Legos. Once you can draw one, you can draw a whole bunch of them and put them together. I hope this helps. Does anyone else just love to doodle with a ballpoint pen every once in a while? I mean, they're pretty versatile for something that I'm assuming wasn't really meant for art. You can get pretty light lines if you press lightly, medium lines if you press a little harder, and nice dark lines if you push down really hard. The width of the lines don't change, like a brush pen, but the opacity seems to, unlike a brush pen. Donna will always find little sketches and doodles on the grocery list, to-do list, calendars, whatever. If there's a ballpoint pen around and an empty corner of paper, I'm doodling. I think these Pentel RSVPs are my favorite, but I'll use pretty much anything. It's nice to just make art with no consequences every once in a while. Something you know no one else will ever see. It's not meant to be art per se, but just a doodle. And just for fun. Want to learn a simple way to draw hair? Come study the master illustrator J.C. Leyendecker with me. J.C. Leyendecker would simplify hair into shapes, much in the way that a sculptor would, turning them into graphical images. Being that this was in the 1920s, the hairstyles had a lot of curls as well too. This of course gave him great shapes to work with. Sometimes he'd work with smaller shapes, sometimes larger shapes. But it's a great exercise and I definitely recommend trying it. No single strands of hair, just decorative shapes that artfully frame the face. His men's hair is so simple it could be a plastic cap put on top. Not wasting any time with single strands of hair, he's just looking at the overall shape. And sometimes it gets really simple like this one. I mean, look at this. But for the most part, he's playing around with wonderful little curls, and I just love it. Over the years of studying J.C. Leyendecker's work, some of it seeped into my own art. I actually find myself unconsciously grouping hair into artistic shapes. Isn't it amazing how studying someone else's work can influence your own? To be or not to be? Sorry, had to do it. So what's the difference between a B and an H pencil? Essentially, H stands for hard lead and B stands for black lead. But really, what B stands for is butter, because it's soft and smooth, like butter. Your typical number 2 pencil would fall right in the middle of an H and a B, and is the equivalent of an HB pencil, a hard black pencil. The H pencil will give you lighter lines like this, and the B pencil will give you softer, darker lines like this. And the HB or number 2 falls right in the middle. But the biggest difference is how you can blend them. The H pencils just don't really blend well. See how the blending stick hardly has any graphite on it? But as we get over to the softer B pencils, the graphite lifts right up, smearing all over the paper and giving you nice gray tones. Look how much the blending stick picked up. So if you want to do realistic portraits with smooth gray tones, go with the B. And if you need fine lines you can easily erase, stick with the H. Now I'm sure there's people so much smarter than me who can answer that so much better. Or pretty much anybody who wants to Google it. But for me, H is for hard lead and B, well, B is for butter. Inspiration can come from anywhere, and it can affect our art differently at different times. I found this stock photo online, and it turned into some doodles. You may remember this from when I talked about negative space. Well, that painting became this one. Months later, I was playing around in a new sketchbook and did this one. Several weeks later, I'm looking at these doodles again, and I really like this neckline of this particular one. So I start sketching, thinking I'll do a Marie Antoinette type of hair. But as I'm sketching, I give her elf ears. I decide she's an archer. She needs a quiver and arrows. I start looking for references for that. Then the background. I'm tired of using stencils. How about some trees? But something Art Nouveau. So I copy Alphonse Mucha. What about something else, like a bird? I find a good clip art image that I could use, and the rest is my imagination. But you can see how a simple photo inspired 3 paintings, and how I used historical art, clip art, concept art, and cosplay photos to fill in the rest. So copy that painting you love, trace that face from the photo you've been saving, download that clip art and use it. That's what it's there for. Artists make art to inspire other artists. Use it, and hopefully your art will inspire someone else. This is a kneaded eraser, sometimes called a gummy eraser, for obvious reasons. They're not the best erasers. You definitely wouldn't use it on colored pencils. They're mainly good for picking up soft pencils or charcoal. You can dab them for broader areas, or you could pinch them for a fine point, which is kind of handy. You can mold them to any shape you need. But they're nothing like Prismacolor's Magic Rub Eraser, which can pretty much eliminate anything. So why do I use kneaded erasers? Well, I'm working in watercolor, and it's a very delicate and transparent medium. And this is what happens with a normal eraser on ink and watercolor paper. Yikes. So I use a 4H pencil, which is very hard and very light, and it's very easy for the kneaded eraser to pick up, and it doesn't ruin the paper. So I could draw whatever I need to, as messy as I need to, then I can ink over it and not worry about the kneaded eraser picking it up or ruining the paper underneath it. So that's why I use a kneaded eraser. Well, that, and you can sculpt with it when you're bored, make little Snoopies and stuff. Snoopy's so cute. I'm halfway through my 30 days of drawing the national animals from around the world, and the question I get asked the most is, how did you learn to draw animals? Well, my friend, I learned from my trusty copy of How to Draw Animals by Jack Ham. It was written in 1969, but this copy I got in high school in 1982. And it has everything. There's step-by-step guides to drawing most every animal. Great for beginners. There's tigers and horses and elephants and pretty much every animal, really. And for the advanced artist, he gets into the details. The ears, the eyes, the noses, the boopable noses. There's pages on cats, big and small. There's bears of all shapes and sizes. Tons of stuff on horses and how they walk. Elephants, learning how to draw dogs in the different breeds. There's camels, giraffes and okapis, hippos and rhinos, deer, goats, llamas and buffalo, cows. This book is utterly amazing. Seriously, I'm not monkeying around. If you want to learn how to draw animals, this is my favorite. You can grab a copy from my book recommendation list on my website. Start off with a square piece of fabric, then draw a point in the middle. Now hang the fabric from that point to get an idea of where the folds are coming from. You can play around with additional points. Imagine how gravity will pull the cloth down from those points. See how the cloth will fold in on itself. It's a fun exercise. That's one way of learning. Another way is copying a master. Let's take a look at one of my favorite artists, J.C. Leyendecker. Now this man can paint folds. First, let's spot where the cloth is going to be hanging from. This seam at the shoulder. See how the cloth pulls away from that seam, going out in a triangular shape? Here on Uncle Sam, it's not a seam, but bunching from a sitting position. Notice the zigzagging as it folds in on itself? Longer pieces of fabric, like dresses or coats, will have longer lines. But there's always a place where they're going to bunch, where the draping comes from. That's the fun part to draw. So when drawing cloth, look for where it's being pulled. It could be a seam, a hand grasping the cloth, an elbow, anything. And lots of times, there's multiple points. Just look for those points of tension. And remember, the cloth is going to drape away from there. As always, the best way to get good at this, or anything, is practice. Bring a sketchbook with you. Draw people out in the wild. Copy fashion magazines. Study the masters. Whatever you can do. But just keep drawing, and you'll get it. I promise. Don't you hate it when you're drawing and your pencil tip breaks? Well, apparently there's a new mechanical pencil that automatically rotates the lead so it always stays sharp. Sound too good to be true? Yeah, I agree. But my wife bought it for me, so I'm gonna try it out. Okay, first off, it's got this really cool Spirited Away design on it. That's kind of nice. And it seems to work like a normal mechanical pencil. The instructions are a little unclear, but I guess the best thing we could do is try it out. So apparently this should rotate so there'll be no flat spots, but ooh, nope, that didn't work. See, when you draw, the lead, or graphite or whatever, it wears down based on the angle of the pencil. So you get a flat spot like this, which means your lines are thicker on one side of the lead and thinner on the other. I found an English translation for the pencil, and apparently it's actually made for writing, not art. It rotates the lead every 20 strokes, which is great for writing, but I think for art, it's just like any other mechanical pencil, but with cool art on it. It is pretty cute, and my wife bought it for me, so I'll probably wind up using it.
Okay, let's be honest. Do left-handed artists really have it more difficult than right-handed artists?
The most common complaint that I get from young left-handed artists is that they always smudge their art because they're left-handed. But wouldn't you avoid smudging if you just drew from right to left instead of left to right? As a righty, if I were to draw from right to left, I'd smudge my art too. See? But I always work from left to right because, well, how did no one teach you this? Okay, so if you want to avoid smudging as a right-handed artist, draw from the top left to the bottom right, like this.
I'm Batman.
Okay, I'm gonna try to do this left-handed, so don't laugh. So left-handed artists, we just do the opposite. We start on the top right and we work our way down to the bottom left.
I said don't laugh, I'm trying my best.
Left-handed artists, I know you have it tough when it comes to writing, but I promise you, you are on 100% equal footing with us righties when it comes to art. Just go top right to bottom left and no more smudging. Remember, there's no rules in art. Do what works for you. Have fun and never, ever, ever, ever let me draw Batman left-handed again. Art should be available to everybody. It doesn't matter how much money you have. All you need is paper, pencil, and a little bit of practice. I took a trip to the art store to do some bargain shopping. I had $10 whole in my pocket, and I was ready to make some art. Look at this cute little journal on clearance. Catitude is everything. Yes. $2.99 for a couple pencil sharpeners. Okay, that's one more than I probably need. And $1.29 for 5 number 2 pencils? Sold. I got everything for less than $8. That's all I need to make art. With this paper and pencil sharpener, I can practice my anatomy, light, shadow, proportions, everything. Or I can do a quick figure studies, or a still life, or I can turn this into a travel journal. The foundation of any good artist is learning to draw. So don't worry about paints or brushes or anything else. You're not trying to make a masterpiece. Get yourself a journal or a sketchbook and just make art every day. Draw the world around you. Learn, grow, explore. The time for expensive art materials comes later. For now, pick up that number 2 pencil, grab your sketchbook, and just have some fun.